Video games. Chances are, if you love them, you thought about making one. To capture even a speck of what made your favourite game so special to you, in your own is something we all dream of. Reality, however, doesn't make it easy. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. We just need to be realistic. Before we dive in, it's important to discuss being realistic. The sentiment that anyone can make a game is one that many people, especially on the Intersphere, share. Me included. Yet not everyone fully embeds it within that red pill that explains how hard games are to make, especially a commercially successful one. Sometimes it's sprinkled decoratively on a crap cake, so as to not discourage people or entice backlash. But annoyingly, both statements are true. They're not mutually exclusive. Yes, anybody can make a game. And, unfortunately, yes, making games bloody difficult. It's seen as demotivating or being a bummer. I don't need any more of those guys, but all we want to do is dream and achieve big things. But choose to not see it that way. Just like imposter syndrome can be a force that drives us to do the best we can, being realistic helps us fully form functional and complete ideas from the dreamscape. So, with that out the way, let's be realistic. Making games is like an iceberg. Seemingly simple, until it capsizes, revealing the gargantuan amount of work and yeeting you across the bloody planet while doing so. It's a lot. There's a misconception, especially online, in what we used to call the birdhouse, about how much time, effort and dedication that's required in making a game of any size, never mind the amount of skills you suddenly find yourself needing to learn. More on that later. One of the reasons why many abandon game development soon after starting is thanks to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The sense of overconfidence through limited understanding, often amplified and spread by generalised discussion, let alone personalities who preach statements as gospel yet know no better. When jumping in, the realisation of the breadth and depth of game development can overwhelm, despite user-friendly engines, tools or handy asset stores. As grateful as we are for them, these can mask the difficulty of the disciplines that form game development, such as game design, coding, storytelling, asset creation, playtesting, project management, system integration, the list goes on. It demands technical, creative and problem-solving skills, sometimes influencing stagnation or eventual project abandonment. Okay, thanks Jack, bit of a downer, but it doesn't have to be. Going in with the right mindset of being realistic will prepare you for what's to come, so when these situations do arise, you are prepared to tackle them face on and start learning. It won't not be difficult, but it will help you build some resilience. You need to know going in that game development, like most things, can demand a lot from you, be difficult, as we keep saying, and is time-consuming, which can often lead to work-life balance conflicts and challenges all around and eventually lead to burnout. But you also need to know that game development is fun. It can influence exploration, it can let your creativity run wild, it teaches you transferable skills that you can use in other areas of your life, and it is intrinsically rewarding. Game development is not impossible. Anyone can make a game, as long as they maintain a grounded mindset and manage their own expectations. We all have an idea, a magnum opus, our dream game. Depending on what it is and where you are in your game dev journey, you might need to make some compromises to make it more manageable. Otherwise, you might spend the next 3 years making a main menu. Yahoo! Whether it's swapping a deep and complex system for a simpler version, making it local co-op instead of that eternal MMO, or simply toning down the game design. This is where every game dev's favourite word comes in, dog's life. This is where everyone's favourite word comes in, scope. Scope is all about defining your game and setting its limitations. It doesn't mean that you can't innovate or think outside the box. Scope aids you in forming structured experiences from boundless ideas. You will have to actually create the games that your ideas come from, so it makes sense to evolve them in a way that makes them achievable with the available experience and people power. This is how we end up with a realistic vision. This doesn't mean you need to annihilate your dream game and sentence yourself to 4 years of making match 1 games. Not at all. Dream games comes from creativity, and creativity is limitless. It's the whole idea of creativity. We don't want to lose that imagination or ambition. What we want to do is finish our game. By narrowing your game's design, you can gain the opportunity to deepen your core systems, to think differently about each mechanic, and create more meaningful gameplay experiences. Outer Wilds isn't one of the best indie games ever made because of its deep crafting systems or intricate player AI interaction. In fact, it doesn't even have any of those things, and thank God it didn't. Focusing on the game's core and forming supporting systems, they produced an unforgettable gaming experience. So how do you start scoping your game? One way is through something called a game design document. Overview documentation of the game's guiding principles to help stay on track and not massively deviate by adding that one cool feature you saw Brandon post once on Twitter. Game design documents come in various formats, with many resources showcasing how to make them. Whatever the scope, you need to keep in mind that you'll actually need to make the game that you're designing. After scoping your dream game, you'll have a better idea of the game that you're actually even making, the steps that you now need to take, and a tangible starting point to start making games. As we hit that big, beautiful, spooky release button, there's a voice in your head hoping, this could be it. Your game will be a massive hit with thousands of players and you'll be raking in millions in the first hour. Yeah, don't expect virality. You could do all the research and planning in the world, analysing popular games and trends, but at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of Lord Gaben. Or somebody stops playing Stardew Valley long enough to notice a new game even came out. Outside of a great gameplay loop and unique take on a genre, popularity is seemingly random. The internet works in mysterious ways. You can improve your chances by marketing your game as early as possible. Just to hammer that home, seriously, I can't stress this enough. Far too many good, decent games fall into the void just to be recognised 6 years later down the line on some random post-image board on 4chan. Oh, God, it's like therapy. And here's the thing, even if your game doesn't go viral, it doesn't mean failure. Every game you make is progress. Game development is more iterative than you could ever think, especially them birds on the tweet house. They don't understand, and you really don't until you start doing it yourself. You'll grow as a developer, and if you're lucky, you might even find a small dedicated player base that is absolutely loving what you're making, even if that is the family dog. Good boy. Oh, you... Success isn't just about reaching millions of people or making a fortune. It's much better than that. Sometimes it's about making something that you're proud of, or something that you'd want to play yourself. If virality is meant to be, whether because you've done your research or the internet gods have deemed it so, that's amazing. How'd you do it? But don't go in assuming it will trend, because the sad reality is there's a higher chance it might not, because of the sheer amount of games out there demanding everyone's attention. It's a sad reality to it, but like I say, that's not the only definition of success in this game. As I'm sure you're aware by now, I bang on about it every other video, game development involves way more disciplines than you initially think it does. You think you know, you don't. And each one requires you to go deeper than you first realise. Unless you're already skilled in one or more of these areas, you need to remember that You're not just making a side project, but usually something that takes entire teams of people to get out the door in a reasonable amount of time. Most of your time will be dedicated to learning these skills, and depending on your game requirements, you can find yourself knee-deep in some pretty insane stuff. And that's before you even consider the fact that each discipline is constantly evolving at its own pace. You're not just making a game, but you're acting as an entire development team. It's overwhelming, but it's also an opportunity to learn a wide variety of new skills. There's not many hobbies or things you can do out there that has a sheer amount of different transferable skills that you can learn. Tackle each slowly and take your time learning these techniques and tools. Remember, the internet is the biggest library in the world. Use it. Step by step, you'll be closer to that goal. And remember, you're not looking to master every single discipline. There's no point doing that. Only understand what will help you achieve your vision.
That's all very charming, Jack, but where the hell do I start?
Okay, Margaret, calm down. That's quite enough out of you. Oh, don't worry, I'll unplug her after the video. I've put together a list of different tools you might find useful during development. Some are free, some are simple, and some you might already know. I've not included code here since the IDE is up to personal preference, but I think we can all agree the best IDE is, of course, pen and paper. No wonder I'm at my job, but if it's the fundamentals that are preventing you from starting, Brilliant has your back. Learning new things or furthering what you already know can be laborious, but it doesn't have to be. With Brilliant, you have access to thousands of interactive lessons in maths, computer science, programming, and AI. Each lesson teaches you how to solve problems rather than simply memorizing solutions to help you be a better thinker. Brilliant prides itself on using the power of interactivity to solidify your understanding on the topics that you choose up to 6 times more effectively than watching lectures. With the Brilliant app, you have access to all your lessons wherever you are, whenever works best for you. With Brilliant, game and software development can slowly be demystified, with the foundations being taught in various courses, such as learning how to program in Python, basic coding fundamentals, or even how to think like a programmer. Over the past couple months, I've personally used Brilliant to relearn the fundamentals of equations. Yes, probably something I should remember as a kid, but I don't. But that's where Brilliant comes in, making you feel more confident with faded concepts and teachings. If you're interested in trying everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days and 20% off an annual premium subscription, visit brilliant.org/DarkDax or click the link in the description. When starting your game dev journey, as we've discussed, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of what you need to learn. As everybody does, we do the first thing that we think of. Go to the internet to ask people that actually know what the hell they're talking about. Watch tutorials, read forums, search for the odd course. There's no shortage of those in the community offering advice. But there is something important that I want to acknowledge. You'll often see a handful of creators claiming that you can learn how to make games following their very specific course. Sometimes that course comes with a hefty price tag. While some of these courses are genuine and provide an integral starting point for budding developers, others provide superficial teachings of the outlined modules rather than deep foundational knowledge you need to become a more self-sufficient developer within the course's target area, and to be frank, should expect from a course and creator making such sensational claims. This contributes to a concept that I'm sure you know: tutorial hell. That special place in purgatory where your reliance on tutorials is so high, you're unable to learn to apply those lessons on your own in different contexts, focused solely on gluing solutions from different videos together in the hopes that you end up with your dream game. It becomes more about instant gratification, but that doesn't prepare you for real problem-solving game development requires. To be clear, we're not talking about reinventing the wheel. I'm not saying that you should go out and create car physics if there's a plugin or library that already offers that for you already. Never do that, it's pointless, and more importantly, boring. Don't get me wrong, like I've said, there are those that have made genuinely valuable courses, packed with insights that can really accelerate your learning. I'm also not knocking courses in its entirety, or tutorial videos with extremely specific scopes. Not at all. Both have such an instrumental part in the community, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't even got off the floor without them. The key is distinguishing between those that help you grow and those that don't. Be mindful of where you spend your time, effort, and most especially, your money. Being self-sufficient doesn't mean abstaining from help until you die. It's learning enough to be able to form solutions to unique problems with knowledge gained from different teachings and experiences. And it's especially helpful when there isn't help out there in the world or of the internet that teaches you how to do these things. The satisfaction that you get, and trust me, from figuring out something, from developing a solution on your own, never gets old. But that doesn't mean you have to rely solely on it, but it is really empowering. Courses and the like are so important. Don't get it twisted. It's also important though to develop these skills to be able to solve problems on your own. That's when you unlock the ability to start understanding how to create bigger and more creative ideas down the road that these things don't necessarily cover. And that all comes down to trusting yourself and learning at your own pace and identifying when, yeah, I do need help here, and searching for help. But remember, trust yourself and see what you can do. Arguably, this is the most important section of the video. Willpower. It can swell with such strength, you're compelled to act now and jump straight in. It can fade, vanishing enthusiasm and leaving you questioning why you even bothered. Willpower is a force that requires consistent stat checks. Managed and cared for, it keeps you motivated and allows you to push through the many difficulties ahead. Game development can take a lot out of you when hitting bumps in the road or hurdles, slowly sapping your willpower. One way to tackle this is to move on to something else for a bit. Take a moment to refocus your mind and come back later having accomplished another goal. But it's not always the answer. Sometimes what you really need is to take a break. Even when you're drained and frustrated, the last thing you want to do is take a break. It makes sense, right? You want to get past it, and stopping now feels like a temporary admission of defeat, when in reality, you're resting at a bonfire, preparing for the next stage, allowing your mind to switch off and recover. You'll find your willpower slowly comes back with time. Bang! Suddenly, that eureka moment when you're cramming on the toilet. It clicks. No one knows the true extent of toilet time on the mind. Then again, it might just be the fact you finally took a break. You were forced to take a break to force something out. Not everyone can commit as much time as they'd like to game development. Life can pop up. Jobs, family, procrastination, we know that one too much. There will always be something. But putting small, consistent progress whenever you can is still progress. And in some cases, a small lifestyle change can really make all the difference, whether that's waking up an hour earlier to do some development, whether that's trading one hobby for another. Remember to be reasonable, but it's about finding balance, not burning out. Many game devs you watch online already do this, some more vocally than others. DevDuck comes to mind. You are not alone. Finally, keep in mind that back-end changes in mechanics or systems won't always translate to massive visual change, which as a visual medium can give the illusion that not a lot has happened. This can massively impact sharing dev updates online, a great marketing technique, as people are typically drawn in by visuals first. But don't overthink it and don't hoard updates until you have enough. At that rate, you never will. Sharing exposes your games to your potential target audience and just gets eyes on it, on what you're making, what features you're currently working on, and more personally acts as a log of how far you've come. So if it wasn't more than obvious by now, Game development is hard, time-consuming and often ruthless. But it's also rewarding. Going in with that mindset will help you expect hurdles and build a bit of resilience for what's to come. If it is hard in the first place, it won't negate it completely, but it will help. Make sure to celebrate wins, both big and small, whether it's implementing a tricky feature, sharing progress updates, or finishing your store page. Acknowledging your achievements is integral to sticking with game development for the long haul. The difficulty of game development, especially online, is underestimated for a variety of reasons, many of which we have talked about in this video. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, there will always be something that trips you up, frustrates you, or stops you in your tracks. It's true for many things in life, but the key is learning how to navigate it and prevent it from affecting your determination. And remember, if something is genuinely out of your control, don't stress. Take care of yourself first. Most importantly of all, remember we do this because we love games and we love creating, to share experiences with others, to express ourselves through worlds only possible through that famous cerebrum bellical cord, to resonate with players across the world. So, if even after everything you've listened, feel ready and prepared to start your game development journey, then what are you waiting for? Go make games.